Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to the Daily Huddle. Today is Tuesday, where we talk everything relationships and communication. And some of you may know that we've made a little shift on Tuesdays. So I'm Tara Heaton, one of the four hosts for Tuesdays. I do the first Tuesday. The second Tuesday is Christy Bailey. And today we are joined with Lee Mitchell Owens, my dear friend and a brilliant, brilliant therapist who is going to be here every third Tuesday sharing her unbelievable wisdom. And she has this unique way of doing it with such a bright light of joy. I am telling you, you will be captivated and you will be forever changed by Lee's knowledge and wisdom. As a matter of fact, I have been. So today, welcome, Lee.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, eventually she's going to take over this introduction, but I'm taking her by the hand today.
You are.
Um, but
You
today
are.
we're going to talk about something very specific that I can relate to and that Lee has really, really great insight on. And our topic for today is healing from the invisible wounds of emotional neglect. Now, I'm going to say that just one more time because I want us to wrap our brains around it.
Okay.
Healing from the invisible wounds of emotional neglect.
Yes.
There's a lot of conversation about trauma today, and we
Yes.
think of trauma as what I think you call big T, right, Lee? The
There's a
big T's
yes.
versus the little T's. So
Hmm.
can you tell us what, a little bit about what trauma is and is emotional neglect trauma? Let's start
Hmm.
there.
Okay. All right. So I have two thoughts, and we'll go with two. I'll tell one, and then I'll give you the other one. But
Okay.
big T trauma is what people normally think of as trauma: sexual abuse, physical abuse, um, the bullying, the things that happen to us. Little T trauma are the smaller things that just happen to lots of people in life. Not getting invited to the birthday parties, feeling rejected at school. Those are kind of little T traumas. And the definition of trauma is anything that overwhelms our ability to cope, right? So anything that overwhelms our ability to cope. Now, all abuse is trauma, but not all trauma is abuse, meaning that we can give the example of like the fires out in California right now are
Mhm.
very, very traumatic, but it's not abusive and it's not personal. It's just traumatic.
Okay.
And so emotional neglect, and the reason why we call it invisible is because unlike physical abuse, where you can see something happened to me, and that's why I am like this, right? If I've been sexually abused or if I have gone through a lot of physical abuse, then we can name what our wounds are and we know why they're there.
Hmm.
Well, emotional neglect is something that's extremely hard for people because it's what didn't happen. It's not what happened to them, it's what didn't happen. And so they have a lot of symptoms, but they don't know why. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
So I have a question about that before we really dig into whether we experienced it, inflicted on others, or both.
Uh-huh.
um, I I think that I hesitate, and I know other young people who hesitate to admit that they were emotionally neglected
Yes.
because it feels disloyal to your parents.
A 100,000%. Yes, that's exactly right. Um, and that's a great segue because I wanted to say before we even get started that I sometimes hesitate because I don't want people to feel shame or
Hmm.
blame. This isn't about blaming our parents. Oh, this is your fault. I'm this way. Or if we are a parent thinking, oh my gosh, I've just completely messed my children up and feel shame. That's not the point of talking about this. The point of talking about it is naming a truth so that we can understand, so that we don't continue to perpetuate things that we're completely unaware of. Most people, when they hear about emotional neglect, they immediately jump to, oh my gosh, I've messed my children up. And I'm like, no, you cannot go there. You have to stay in what did I learn? I might have transmitted it to our kids, and chances are we did. But what heals the most? To heal our children, we have to heal ourselves. And that's where we start. Always, always, always. What happened? How's it showing up in my life? This is why. And now I can move on to healing.
Thank you. And tell me this, I think I know the answer, but I really want to shine a light on this. You can be wildly, madly as in love with your children as a human can possibly be,
Yes.
still emotionally neglect them.
100%. Yes. And the reason why is because of we can't give away that which we do not have, right? And so if our parents did not teach us how to emotionally regulate overwhelming feelings, and we don't know how to do that ourselves inside of ourselves, then when our children present with distress or overwhelming feelings, how can we give something that we don't know how to do ourselves?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So help us to understand what is invisible.
Okay,
What
so
is called invisible emotional neglect?
yeah. So I wrote it down so I could make notes and
Oh,
follow. So
invisible wounds. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Dig me in.
well, effects, wounds, whatever people want to call. A lot of people come to my office um, and will say, I don't know why I'm like this, like nothing bad ever happened to me.
Mhm.
Right. And so, but they have all the symptoms. And so, I'll tell you, what emotional neglect looks like is when our early caregivers, and what you had said, it can be intentional, unintentional, or even unconscious, right? People don't
Hmm.
know. But that our early caregivers could not meet our emotional needs because they were uncomfortable with emotions themselves, right? Unsure of how to respond to complex feelings that the child feels. They don't know how to do that. Parents might be too overwhelmed with their own stress, right? In their own life, they might struggle with any type of addiction, work-life balance. They might just work all the time. Um, they might struggle to have their own mental health struggles. Um, and parents not knowing how to manage their own emotions. And so they cannot possibly teach children what they didn't learn. And I'll
Mhm.
just give an example out of my own life. My dad was uncomfortable with tears, so he wouldn't let us cry, and he would send us away to go to your room, and you go to your room, and when you can act right, come out, something like that. So not only did I learn that it's not okay to be sad, it's not okay to cry. I would have had no idea when you're young what even happened. Why is there a separation in this relationship? Like what just happened? And now I've got to figure it out all by myself. Right. And so there's no way a child can't figure it out because they don't have the language for it, which is kind of what we're seeing in the adult life. And when we grow up, how in the world would someone know how to manage sadness if they couldn't even name sadness?
Wow.
Right. And
Yeah.
then you feel rejected and abandoned and alone and overwhelmed. And those emotions get pushed down right inside because I wouldn't have been able to name I'm overwhelmed. I wouldn't have been able to name I'm sad. I wouldn't have been able to name that I need you to hold me and co-regulate my emotions. Right. And so what happens is those just kind of get pushed down and now life just keeps going. We age physically, our bodies grow. But if that emotion wasn't taught and learned, you just grow with that and have no idea. And then life just keeps happening. And of
Okay.
course, always gets more and more complicated.
Yeah.
And then false beliefs start to come from those experiences.
Mm. I would like to give a couple examples from my life as well. And then if we could take that information, just maybe to help people think of other examples in their lives, and then
Yes,
take that and let's talk about what we are going for is what are these wounds and how do we heal from them? So
100%. Yes.
I'll share where my brain is going, Lee, is
Okay.
when I was a little girl
Yes.
in first grade, and this is no exaggeration, second grade, third grade, all the way through, I got myself up and got myself to school while my mom was sleeping. And
Yes.
that seemed normal to me.
Yes.
That's what we did. And
Yes.
then every once in a while, she'd be out of town or whatever, I'd stay with my friend Ginger. And her whole freaking family was up at the breakfast table. There was noise, there was a television on. They were all, and I just was horrified. Like, is this what how life is supposed to be? So
Yes.
it was lonely. I remember how lonely it was, and
Yes.
it's also normal. So that was
Yes.
like very much not being there in that particular moment. Um,
100%.
my
Yes.
mom couldn't have loved me anymore. So those
Yes.
two things aren't aligned. And then I want to fast way forward to I'm in trauma
Yeah.
as a mother.
Yes.
And this is what you mentioned this, and I really want to dig into it. I was there for my children. My ass was up every morning. I promise you that. I was home every night unless I was working, but I was not emotionally available a lot of the time. And I even use these words. This is how I describe it. I was not strong enough to be soft for my children. I was like
So
high
good.
vibration on go all the
Yes.
time.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
trying to talk them out of their feelings. It's okay. Things could be worse. Let's turn up the music.
Yeah,
So
that is
it
so
happened to
good.
me, and I did it to my children, and I want you to fix it, and you have 16 minutes to do it.
Yes. So what a great example, Tara. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being vulnerable, because that is exactly what we do. And what you were describing is called a baseline for normal. What children experience when we're growing up is normal to us. We don't even know there's a deficit, right? So how do people try to heal something that they don't even know is there? They don't even know it was a deficit, right? And that's exactly what you did to your children, but you had no idea you were doing it, right? You thought you were helping. That's what we do, right? Hey, listen, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's what I did, to
Yep.
my son, because that was what's done to me. Stop whining. Stop, 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 stop. No whining. Blah, 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 blah. Just cut him off. No whining. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Let's get going. There's no time to complain. We don't complain
Back
in
it
this
up.
house. That's
Yep.
exactly, but that's how I was raised, right? And so what does this do when you're raised like this? What does this do? It makes us feel as adults unseen, like there's a feeling inside of, we can become very defensive. We're disconnected. We're unprepared to cope with the life's demands. Um, Adults who, I wrote a list here, and I'm just going to read some of these off. Adults who experienced emotional neglect as children may struggle with chronic feelings of guilt and shame, depression, anxiety. These are symptoms, by the way, right? A lot of times in the mental health field in the past, we would call them like pathology, like something's wrong. And I want to say there's nothing wrong with us. Like it actually is a logical ending. I mean, everything makes sense. There's always a reason. There's nothing wrong with us, and we're not broken. We're wounded, and we need to heal. So, let's see, difficulty for people maintaining healthy relationships, depending on how much emotional neglect was there, because, maybe people want to be close to us, but like you, I grew up with this arm's length distance. And so it's hard to feel close. Well, when you get married, you got to be close. My husband's like, what is this? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I just grew up like this. I didn't know you spend time with people you love. Um, just like you didn't know that people wake up and have breakfast and it's really loud and there's a lot of stuff. If you didn't grow up like that, then you think, huh, right? So my husband wanted to spend time with me. Can you believe that? He wanted to spend time with me. And I was like, huh, I didn't know that you spend time with people that you love. What a silly statement. But right, my family of origin is like a tabletop. We're all connected, but nobody touches. Everybody does their own thing. My mom did her own thing. My dad did his own thing. They're both adult children of alcoholics. So my brother did his thing and I did my thing. So that's how I grew up. I didn't get married till I was 42. I had no idea there's another way to do it. People can avoid relationships altogether because it's hard, right? Interpersonal relationships are hard if you don't know how to cope with your emotions. You can have problems with emotional regulation, like controlling your temper, feeling easily triggered, people who are highly reactive in relationships. Problems with processing and expressing emotion. substance abuse, borderline personality disorder, chronic numbness. We're just numb to our emotions. People are like, it's okay. They're just completely checked out. Some people have chronic people pleasing, right? They don't feel safe enough to be themselves. They need to figure out what you need. I need to make you happy. And if you're happy, I'm happy. Definitely chronic low self-esteem. And emotional neglect affects the nervous system and our brain. Some more severe emotional neglect. Vulnerability and opening up to other people is scary, right? Which limits people to connect. They just may withdraw. Let me see what I got here. Social isolate. There's a lot of social anxiety. I mean, it goes on and on and on because relationally, we did not learn. To me, emotional intelligence is equally as important as intellectual intelligence, but we didn't learn that. And so we have lots of smart people, lots of people that are succeeding at a high level that relationally are struggling. Because if you don't learn, right, if nobody taught you to read and write, you wouldn't learn. Your body would grow and you would be an adult and people would look at you and think you should know how to read and write. But if nobody taught you, then you won't know. And that's what's happening with this emotional stuff. We don't know. We don't know. And so I want to talk about healing though. So do you have a question?
So all those things that you listed off could be anything that someone comes to you and says, look, I have this terrible social anxiety, for example. I had this healthy childhood, went to college. I don't know where it's coming from.
Yes.
Maybe just need a pill for it. Maybe I'm just made this way.
Yes.
And
yes. And I would say the first thing I would say to somebody is tell me what your life was like between the ages of 0 and 12. Because 0 and 12 is when all of the implicit memory, and we can get into this on a podcast about the brain, but that is where all of our implicit memory is stored. That's what comes up. That's what triggers are. And that all happens between the ages of 0 and 12. And around middle school, our brain really shifts in a huge developmental way. And we are then starting really to develop our more logical, linear left brain, which is our problem-solving brain, but not our emotional brain.
All right. So someone, let's just say someone has uncovered this emotional neglect in their life.
Yes.
And they've identified the wounds.
Yes.
Take us to healing. What is that all about?
It's my favorite part and why I do what I do, which is knowing that no matter where you came from, you can heal. Our brain is designed to heal. Our nervous system is designed to heal. And I know I've said this before on the other podcast, but trauma blocks love, and love heals trauma. Love heals trauma. So the beginning of healing is learning what was missing. First, naming what happened, right? And being able to name that truthfully, like what you said about most people are extremely protective of their parents. Most people, especially the ones with emotional neglect. If people have overt forms of abuse, it's easier for them to say, they damaged me. It's very difficult for people who did not have that. They don't want to say that my mom or dad did something to harm me. And so helping people to just pull back and say, we're not blaming your parents, but if you cannot name, I was wounded, you can't heal. So we cannot change what we do not acknowledge, and we cannot acknowledge what we don't know is there.
Okay.
And so
thank you for saying that so slowly and just helping, because I know you've said it a million times, but God, that settles in. So go ahead.
No, that was good. Is we cannot change what we don't acknowledge, and we cannot acknowledge things that we don't know are there. So healing begins. I tell people it's an adventure. Let's get to know yourself. Let's get to know you and all of the wonderful parts make you you.
Mhm.
Even
Wow.
the parts that we wish weren't there. A lot of people, um, they're like, oh, I hate this anxiety. I want it to go away. Or I have intrusive thoughts. I hate those. They destroy my life. So we just start with, okay, your challenge this week is to see how many times that we just bring people online to notice. I want you to notice what you think, notice how you talk to yourself, notice what happens, and bring people online to being aware of what's happening. That's the first piece because of what I just said, right? We can't change what we don't acknowledge. We can't acknowledge things that we don't know are there. And so the awareness. And then from awareness, the second piece of the puzzle after we become aware is then starting to name. We have to name it to tame it. You have to feel it to heal it. So what does that mean? Oh, I notice that I I notice that I just wake up with anxiety every morning. What I would say to someone is, can you just be with that anxiety and said, if anxiety had words, what would it say? And be with the anxiety. Don't try to get rid of the anxiety. Don't try to make the anxiety go away. Be with your anxiety. And I do some kind of loving stance to yourself. If anxiety had words, what would it say? And then listen. And this will become the journey that we start learning. We have to practice, right? It's definitely a practice. And then we can know when you know what you feel, then you can know what you need. And when you know what you can need, you can meet the need.
Okay, say that again.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Well, when you know what you feel, right? So most of us don't know what we feel,
Mhm.
right? Like what you said, we're going to go, 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 work, 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 be busy, 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 be distracted. We have no idea. So when we can learn, what am I feeling? When we can learn what we're feeling and name it, then we can know what to do,
Okay.
right? And when we know what to do, like we'll be able to we'll be able to know what our need is. One of the things, this is a good one, Tara, that I learned from, I don't know, I've been to a gazillion trainings, but somebody said, if you want to know what you need, pay attention to what you complain about.
Ooh, interesting.
If you want to know what you need, pay attention to what you complain about.
Okay.
For example, I'll give again one out of my, I'm so exhausted. I'm so exhausted. I'm always just so exhausted. Well, it's clear that what I would need is rest.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I'd say, well, why am I not resting? Why can't I rest? What does that mean? Right. And then you start unpacking the layers is, oh, because when I grew up, rest was equivalent with laziness. And so, like
Yeah.
my system, right, won't go there because it doesn't want to be lazy. So I won't be able to give myself what I need. But you have to unpack that. That's why all of these things are kind of
Mhm.
of layers of love and understanding,
Okay.
bringing love to yourself and understanding.
I want to make time to allow folks to pop up their hand if they have a question or a comment. But while we're waiting for that, so y'all go ahead if anybody has any questions, because I certainly have a million, but I don't want to hog Lee. What I'm getting from this, and you've never come right out and said it, but this is what I'm getting is, well, early on, you said you can't give away what you don't have. And
Yes.
you also say that love heals trauma. It
Yes.
seems to me that you're saying that you have to start by loving yourself.
You're so good. Look at you putting, yes. Well, I mean, yes. And that only comes by understanding yourself,
Mhm.
right? And in the example I just gave about me not being able to rest, learning that the belief system that resting is lazy is not true. That's a lie. That was my baseline for normal, but it is not true.
Mhm.
That's not a true statement. And being able to love myself when I'm tired and say it is okay for you to take a nap. It's okay for you to rest your body. It's okay for you to rest your mind, right? Instead of having, you need to get up, you need to do the laundry, you have so much to do. Don't just sit around and lay around, or however we're experiencing that. Does that make
Okay.
sense what I'm saying? Yes.
Yes.
Bring
Yes.
yourself first. will
Okay.
heal you.
Mhm.
It heals. And then you can offer that love, right?
How could a parent, let's just say, oh, Sorrel has his hand up. So I want to dig into Sorrel's question first, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tara. Good morning again, Lee.
Hey, Sorrel.
Lee, you cannot change what you don't acknowledge.
That's right.
You cannot acknowledge the things you don't know are there,
Correct.
which
That's right.
point to some looking needed to
Yes.
actually discover the things I don't know are there.
That's right. That's
Could
exactly
you give me some direction on how the looking happens? Is that an appointment with you, or is there a way people can look on their own?
It's helpful to have a guide in the beginning because how you live your life internally makes perfect sense to you. How I live my life internally makes perfect sense to me. So having somebody to mirror that and say, like helping you to do the deep dive inside and look inside. But if people don't have time for a therapist or can't go or don't have the money, I would just say spending time with yourself. If you feel mad, sad, or anxious, just take a pause, see what happened right before that, look at what you're thinking, like what happened in that moment, what you're telling yourself about what happened. Really gives people insight. We never pause. We just get mad or we get sad or we start the story. Oh, they rejected me and they never want me to come. And that hurts my feelings after everything I do for them, right? That's the story after the event. And we can start to see, is that really true, right? Is that true or is that a story I'm telling myself? And so that begins the journey. The journey begins by looking inside instead of outside.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm concluding that human beings like me never.
Yes. We didn't learn to look.
Yeah.
Sorrel, like I had written down people who I'm 58, I'll be 59 years old this year. And I was thinking about our parents and our grandparents, right? Like my grandfather went through World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and the Depression. Nobody had time to feel, right? Nobody's talking about how to feel, right? And if you're wherever you came from, if you were a Black American, right, culturally, nobody, I mean, why would anybody ask you how you feel, right? Being just feeling afraid, walking out in the world, right? Being scared. If your parents were scared, like don't do anything, how they handed that down, right? Just your baseline for normal, which is abnormal. It shouldn't be that way, right? That's your baseline for normal. What you've done, what I've done is we create protective mechanisms to hide the fear or hide our belief system. And then that becomes embedded and buried inside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to find that and offer love and truth. And when we can offer love and truth, is that true? Then we can heal. But most of the time, we don't even know it's there. It's just automatic.
Normal. That's life.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. That is exactly right.
Don't complain. Don't complain. Don't complain.
Don't complain and don't whine. Right.
Yeah.
So I believe we're having a new collective, which is why you have the Daily Huddle as a new collective to talk about things that we never brought to the surface before, so that together, collectively, we can see that we're having a human experience and that then we can bring love together to that human experience, because knowledge is the first step to being able to say, I need to make a change and I want to make a change.
Thank you, Lee.
You're welcome.
Glad this is recorded, because what you just said about the Daily Huddle is key. We're going to integrate that into its intention.
It is beautiful. It is beautiful. We are up on time, and Giovanni, in true Giovanni fashion, has a question. So if you can hang here with us for another minute or two, bring it to us, Gio.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a great conversation. So I'm having a difficult time articulating in this question in the right context.
Okay.
So let me see. I haven't been taught
Yep.
the power of feeling, but
Yes.
tolerating, right? Or
Yes.
push through.
Yes.
It has served me really well,
Yes.
yet in many ways I can see how at night I'm fighting a massive discomfort about being and
Yes.
life itself, right? Okay.
Yes.
But my internal world makes sense to me. So,
Of course. Yeah.
right, like you're saying. So, at what point would the looking becomes overlooking and overlooking and overlooking and overlooking, and it becomes a downward spiral without a
Uh-huh.
hole without a
That
bottom?
spot. Yes, I can.
I
Mhm.
get the whole world, and at some point, do you say it's healthy to take responsibility for the meaning of it all?
Mhm.
Where does it walk it off comes into place? Like knock it off.
Mhm.
Where does
Yeah.
that? Where would that be healthy? Because I'm like, it becomes a pity party for a long time,
If
in
it
some way. Yeah.
if you could, yes, if you adapt a victim mentality, then yes, it becomes a pity party. But that's why having somebody kind of help you, a guide, a coach, a therapist, to be able to name what is true and then heal from that, because our internal world is always, our past is always working in our present. And so for good and bad, there's like life is like a railroad track. There's always something good, and then and then life is challenging. So I would tell people if they're getting too absorbed, because that's not the point, is if you go inside and you stay inside and you get blended with all of the parts of you that are sad and depressed, that's not healthy. So we would learn skills how to come in and out if people are getting stuck in there, how to transition from being kind and loving to yourself and to your story, and then also being well balanced and being the healthy balanced person, because ultimately we want to be a healthy balanced person. And that would say we go in sometimes and then we come out sometimes. We don't always stay in there. But what I've learned is that most people don't even know how to be in here. They avoid it at all costs. Like they're like, no, I'm not doing that at all. But yet they struggle relationally, and they struggle with, like what you said, maybe some dark thoughts or being with ourselves. And that's that's not the way that we were designed. That means that we have pain in there that's unprocessed and needs to heal, and we can do it. I've done it. I'm still doing it. I always tell my clients, listen, I'm not up here and you're down here. We're like this, and I'm here and you're here, and I just come back and get you and pull you up here because I'm doing the work too. I've done the work, and I'm continuing to do the work of being able to love parts of myself, even the ones that are challenging for myself and other people, you know? And so that what we give ourselves, we then can give someone else, right? If you can give yourself compassion, then we can offer somebody else compassion. A lot of times people say, well, I'm compassionate with others. And I was like, well, you probably have pretender parts. Those are parts of you that help you survive. And you can pretend, we can show up, right? We can show up and pretend. And that's okay. I love all my pretender parts. Thank goodness I have them, because I had a lot of darkness inside, Giovanni. Lots and lots. My whole life was engulfed in darkness internally. But nobody out in the external world knew that because of my vibrant personality. And so we're just trying to align those so that internally we can live with an internal peace, right, instead of internal chaos. And so, yeah.
Yeah, thank you,
Great,
Lay.
great question, though. Really. Yeah. Because if you turn inside and you can't get out, yeah, you have to have somebody help you get out.
So good. Lee, thank you so much. This has just
You're
been
welcome.
really empowering.
Thank you
And
so
the way
much.
you deliver it with this light and love around you is just, it is a true gift. So with that, I'm going to close us out, and you listen carefully because you're going to do this next time.
Okay.
And so our first tenet is love. And I think that Lee, thank you for without even saying it, you model it. So thank you for showing up with love. Face your world, show up with love. The second is, or one of my favorite is generosity. Give. Remember that you always have something to give away, and give it freely without expectations. Give of your heart, your time, your spirit, your resources. Give. It will come back to you. And I always say, don't take life too seriously. Take time to throw that head back and have some deep belly laughs. Let those endorphins fly.
Yes.
And thankfully, we're learning to stress less. And part of that is getting our sleep, reminding ourselves how much we need to sleep, put mostly plants and water into our body, and also get up off that butt and move that body. Thank you all for being here on the Daily Huddle. It's Tuesdays, communication and relationships, and we'll see y'all tomorrow.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you for being here, Stan.